Lieutenant Jack Miller stood tall despite the whispers and snickers around him. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council was filled with representatives from over 50 alien species, and right now, all their eyes were on him. Or rather, on the holographic display showing his recent shooting performance. The human missed the central target by 7 units, announced the Krozith representative, his 4 eyes blinking in what Jack recognized as amusement. Our youngest cadets show better accuracy. Jack kept his face neutral even as his knuckles turned white at his sides. The demonstration had been rigged from the start. The Council had insisted humans showcase their military capabilities as part of Earth's application for membership. What they hadn't mentioned was that they would be comparing human soldiers using physical firearms against species with neural-linked targeting systems. Ambassador Lisa Ortiz stepped forward, her diplomatic smile firmly in place. The Krozith evolved with multiple eyes and naturally superior depth perception. We humans have different strengths. The Council Chamber, a massive dome with curved walls that seemed to stretch into infinity, felt suddenly smaller to Jack. The air smelled strange, a mix of different atmospheric requirements for the various species present. Different strengths. The Vrax delegate made a sound like stones grinding together, which Jack's translator rendered as laughter. We have studied your species. You evolved as hunters, yet your accuracy is disappointing. Lisa's smile didn't waver, but Jack saw the tension in her shoulders. Earth's first diplomatic mission to the Galactic Council was not going well. The head counselor, a tall, willowy being with skin like polished silver, raised a hand for silence. We have observed enough. Humans use projectile weapons that rely on manual aim, without computational assistance. An outdated approach, but perhaps understandable for a species new to interstellar travel. Jack bit his tongue. He could have explained that humans still used manual weapons because they worked even when electronic systems failed. He could have mentioned that the shooting demonstration hadn't shown any of their tactical applications or environmental adaptations, but those weren't his orders. He was here to demonstrate, not defend. The council will deliberate, the head counselor continued. Please wait in the antechamber. Outside in the waiting area, Jack found a corner away from curious alien eyes. That could have gone better, Lisa said as she joined him, her voice low. They set us up to look primitive, Jack replied. Any chance to show them what we can really do? Lisa shook her head. Not now. First impressions matter here, and ours is already made. 3 hours later, they were called back into the chamber. The head counselor stood at the center of the circular platform. Earth is granted provisional membership status. The announcement came, the translator making the aliens' musical language sound flat and mechanical. With restrictions on territory expansion and military deployment beyond your solar system. Lisa stepped forward. We accept with gratitude, but request clarification on the restrictions. Your species is unpredictable, the Vrax delegate said. Your technology is unsophisticated, yet you advance rapidly. Until you prove yourselves worthy of trust, these limitations are necessary. Jack noticed how the other species nodded in agreement. Earth was being contained, not welcomed. As they left the chamber, Jack heard more laughter from the Krozith delegation. Perhaps we should give them targeting computers as a welcome gift, one said, not quietly enough. Don't let it get to you, Lisa whispered. This is just the beginning. Jack nodded, but his mind was already working. The aliens had focused entirely on accuracy, on hitting a target dead center. None of them had asked why humans sometimes deliberately didn't aim for the obvious target. None had considered that missing might occasionally be intentional. Someday, he thought, they would learn. Humans had never survived by being the strongest or fastest. They survived by being the cleverest. And sometimes, being clever meant not aiming for what everyone else thought was the objective. 3 months passed after Earth's disappointing first impression at the Galactic Council. The humans had returned home with their provisional membership status and a long list of restrictions. Life went on, but something was brewing at the edge of human space. Captain Sam Howard stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Fleet's flagship, the Dauntless. His weathered face was lit by the glow of the main screen, which showed a cluster of unknown ships moving through a sector near Neptune. "They're back again," said his second-in-command, Laura Diaz. "Third time this week." Sam nodded. "Vrac scouts. They're testing our response times." The alien ships, shaped like jagged arrowheads, moved with a purpose that worried Sam. Intelligence reports indicated the Vracs were an aggressive species with a history of expanding into undefended territories. And thanks to the Council's restrictions, much of Earth's outer solar system qualified as exactly that. "Send the usual warning," Sam ordered. "But this time, record everything. We need evidence for the Council." 2 days later, Ambassador Lisa Ortiz stood before the Galactic Council again, this time via holographic projection. The recording of Vrac ships in Earth's space played for all to see. "These incursions violate the boundary agreements," Lisa said firmly. "We request Council intervention, as is our right under provisional membership." The head councilor's expression was unreadable. The Vracs claim they were merely passing through on standard patrol routes. 6 times in 2 weeks is not passing through, Lisa countered. The Vracs delegate, a hulking figure with skin like cracked stone, made that grinding laugh again. "Perhaps the humans are simply paranoid, a common trait among prey species who lack adequate defenses." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Lisa's holographic form stiffened. "We have defenses. We're simply respecting the Council's restrictions on their deployment." "Untested defenses," the Krasith representative added. "Unproven, like your species." Back on Earth, in the military headquarters beneath the Rocky Mountains, Captain Sam Howard watched the Council meeting with growing frustration. When the transmission ended with the Council's decision to monitor the situation, he slammed his fist on the table. "They're setting us up to fail," he said to the room of officers gathered around him. "The Vracs are going to push until they cross our lines, and the Council won't lift a finger until it's too late." Lieutenant Jack Miller, recently promoted after the Council demonstration, spoke up. "Then we need to change their minds about us. Prove we're worth defending." "How?" asked Sam. "They've already seen our weapons and dismissed them." Jack leaned forward. "They saw what we showed them, which wasn't much. What if we challenged them directly? A military competition of some kind?" The room fell silent, as everyone considered this idea. "The Council loves their competitions," said Major Kelly Dawson, head of Special Tactics. "Almost every new species has to prove themselves somehow, usually through their technology or cultural achievements. But never through combat," Sam said, thinking aloud. "They consider themselves evolved beyond physical conflict." "Except when the Vracs are involved," Jack pointed out. "I heard the Krasith bragging about how they helped repel a Vracs expansion 50 years ago. They're proud of their combat skills, even if they pretend not to be." Sam's eyes lit up. "We challenge them on their terms, but we fight on ours." The next day, Lisa Ortiz presented the Council with an official proposal, a series of combat simulations between humans and other Council species, to be held at the Neutral Nexus Station. The winner would earn the right to expanded territory and full defensive capabilities. The Vracs delegate laughed the loudest. "We accept. Humans will learn their proper place." The Krasith, not to be outdone, quickly joined. "Our neural targeting systems are unmatched. We will participate as well." One by one, other species added their names to the challenge. They saw an easy victory and a chance to further humiliate the newcomers. Lisa kept her face carefully neutral, but inside she smiled. The trap was set. Now they just needed the right team to spring it. Major Kelly Dawson sat in her office reviewing personnel files. Hundreds of soldiers had volunteered for the Galactic Challenge, but she needed just the right team. Not the best shots, not the strongest fighters, but the smartest thinkers. She pushed aside the file of a marksman with perfect accuracy scores and pulled forward the record of Sergeant Ben Cole. His shooting scores were good but not exceptional, What caught her eye was the note from his combat instructor. Cole can bounce a bullet off 3 surfaces and still hit the target. Never seen anything like it. Kelly smiled and added his file to her selection pile. Next came Corporal Nancy Ford. Her file contained multiple reprimands for improper use of equipment, alongside commendations for creative problem-solving in the field. One report described how she had used a water canteen and sunlight to create a distraction during a training exercise, allowing her team to complete their objective while the opposing force was temporarily blinded. "Perfect," Kelly murmured, adding Ford's file to the pile. The third file belonged to Private First Class Alan Garcia. His psychological evaluation noted an unusual ability to predict movement patterns and anticipate reactions. He wasn't the fastest or strongest, but he seemed to know where targets would be before they got there. By midnight, Kelly had selected 12 soldiers with similar qualities. None of them were the type that alien observers would expect. That was exactly what she wanted. The next morning, she presented her choices to Captain Howard. He frowned as he reviewed the list. "These aren't our top shooters, Kelly," he said. "The Council's going to be looking for accuracy." "No," Kelly replied. "They're going to be looking for us to shoot like them. That's not how we're going to win." Sam studied her face. "You have a plan." "The aliens think shooting is about hitting what you aim at. For humans, it's always been about achieving the objective. Sometimes that means hitting something else entirely." Sam slowly nodded as understanding dawned on him. "They're expecting a shooting contest. We're going to give them a thinking contest." 1 week later, Kelly met her team at a remote training facility in the Arizona desert. The 12 soldiers stood at attention under the hot sun, curious about why they had been selected. "At ease," Kelly said. "You're probably wondering why you're here instead of our top marksman." Sergeant Cole shifted uncomfortably. "The question had crossed my mind, Mom." Kelly gestured to the training course behind her. It looked like a standard shooting range with targets at various distances. "I want each of you to hit the center target." The soldiers looked at each other in confusion. The center target was clearly visible, an easy shot for any of them. "What's the catch, Major?" asked Corporal Ford. Kelly smiled. "You can't aim directly at it." For the next 3 days, Kelly pushed her team to think differently about shooting. They practiced ricochets, learned to use the environment, and developed signals to coordinate complex shots that affected multiple targets at once. On the 4th day, she introduced moving obstacles and changing environments. By the end of the week, they could hit targets they couldn't even see by manipulating their surroundings. Private Garcia proved especially talented at predicting how systems would react. He could fire at a pressure valve and know exactly how the resulting steam would affect visibility and movement in an area. 2 weeks into training, Ambassador Ortiz visited the facility. She watched as the team ran through a complex scenario, deliberately missing direct shots, but achieving their objectives through cascading effects. "Will it be enough?" she asked Kelly afterward. "The Krasith have targeting systems wired directly into their brains. The Vraks can calculate trajectories instantly." Kelly glanced at her team, now reviewing their performance with animated discussions and hand gestures. "They're expecting us to compete on accuracy. We're going to show them something they've never seen before. And if they change the rules, if they set impossible targets." Kelly's eyes gleamed with determination. "Then we'll change the game." Nexus Station hung like a giant metal spider in neutral space, its 8 docking arms extending outward from a central hub. Ships from 7 different species were already attached to the station when the human vessel arrived. Inside, the station buzzed with activity. Alien representatives mingled in the central observation dome, their varied forms creating a living mosaic of galactic diversity. Ambassador Lisa Ortiz moved carefully through the crowd, nodding politely to those who acknowledged her. "The human delegation arrives last, as expected," said a Vrax commander loud enough for Lisa to hear. Perhaps they needed extra practice. Lisa maintained her diplomatic smile but said nothing. Major Kelly Dawson and her team were purposely arriving late, giving them less time to be studied by their opponents. In the preparation chamber, Kelly briefed her team one final time. Remember your training. They'll be watching for accuracy on direct targets. That's not our game. Sergeant Ben Cole checked his standard-issue rifle. Do we know what scenarios they've planned? No, Kelly admitted. But whatever they throw at us, remember, we're not aiming to impress them with our shots. We're aiming to win by achieving objectives. The competition began in the main arena, a vast chamber that could be reconfigured for different combat scenarios. Spectators watched from elevated galleries, protected by energy fields. The Galactic Council members occupied a special box at the highest point. The Vrax team went first. 6 hulking warriors with ridged skin demonstrated their shooting on stationary targets. Each shot hit dead center with perfect precision. The crowd murmured with appreciation. Next came the Krozith. Their 4-armed soldiers moved with fluid grace, hitting moving targets with ease. Their neural targeting systems allowed them to fire without even looking directly at their targets. The council members nodded approvingly. 3 more species demonstrated their combat skills, each showing impressive accuracy and technology. One species used energy weapons that curved around obstacles. Another employed drones that could target independently. Finally, it was humanity's turn. Kelly led her team into the arena, aware of the dismissive looks from the alien observers. The human team will now demonstrate their targeting capabilities, announced the council moderator. The first scenario was simple: hit 10 targets at varying distances. The humans took their positions. Begin, called the moderator. The human team fired. To the watching aliens, their performance appeared mediocre. Some shots hit near the center, others seemed to miss entirely. Laughter rippled through the audience. Is this truly the best Earth can offer? A Krozith observer said loudly. The head counselor held up a hand for silence. Let us proceed to the second scenario. This time, the arena reconfigured to show a complex environment with moving targets. Again, the human team's shooting seemed erratic compared to the precision demonstrated by the other species. In the diplomatic viewing box, a Vrax representative leaned toward Lisa. Your species should stick to diplomacy. Combat is clearly not your strength. Lisa kept her eyes on Kelly's team. The competition isn't over yet. By the third scenario, the mockery from the alien observers had grown bolder. The human team seemed to be performing worse, not better, as the challenges increased in difficulty. Captain Sam Howard watched from the Earth delegation area, his jaw tight with tension. They're being too subtle, he muttered. The aliens can't see what they're doing. Ambassador Ortiz touched his arm. Patience, Captain. Major Dawson knows what she's doing. As the fourth scenario began, a hostage rescue simulation, the arena transformed into a multi-level structure with obstacles and dangers. The Krozith team had completed it with impressive efficiency. Now Kelly's team entered, looking small and vulnerable compared to the other competitors. This time, something changed. Instead of firing directly at the target drones representing hostage takers, Sergeant Cole shot at a metal support beam. The bullet ricocheted, hitting a control panel that caused a section of lighting to fail. In the sudden shadow, Corporal Ford fired at what seemed to be an empty wall. Her bullet triggered an emergency sprinkler system, creating a curtain of water that refracted the remaining light. The alien observers fell silent, confusion replacing their mockery. This wasn't missing. This was something else entirely. Through the curtain of water, Private Garcia fired 3 quick shots. None of them hit the target drones directly. Instead, each bullet struck a different part of the environment. The first hit a power junction, causing a section of lights to flicker. The second struck a ventilation cover, knocking it loose. The third hit a thin pipe running along the ceiling. Steam burst from the damaged pipe, rapidly filling the space with a thick fog. The target drones, programmed to track movement and heat signatures, began firing randomly into the mist. From the viewing gallery, the alien observers watched in confusion. This wasn't a demonstration of accuracy. It looked like chaos. "What are they doing?" asked the Krasith commander. "Their shots are wild." In the diplomatic box, Ambassador Lisa smiled slightly but said nothing. Back in the arena, Kelly's team moved with purpose through the steam and shadows they had created. The drones couldn't track them through the environmental interference. One by one, Kelly's soldiers reached the simulated hostages and moved them to safety without ever directly engaging most of the threats. Sergeant Cole took position behind a fallen beam. He fired a single shot that ricocheted off a metal panel, then bounced again off an overhead fixture before striking the central control unit of the drones. All at once, the remaining drones froze in place. The scenario timer stopped. The humans had completed the mission in nearly half the time of the Krasith team, with fewer shots fired. Silence fell over the observation gallery. The head counselor struggled to find words. That was not a demonstration of targeting skill. Kelly stepped forward, her voice clear through the station's communication system. With respect, it was a demonstration of achieving objectives. You asked us to complete the scenario. You didn't specify how. The alien observers began talking all at once. Some sounded angry, others confused, a few intrigued. The council called for a brief recess to discuss what they had witnessed. In the preparation room, Captain Howard met with Kelly's team. "That got their attention," he said with a small smile. "But there are 3 more scenarios to go, and they might change the rules." Kelly nodded. "We expected that. Each of us has prepared for multiple approaches." The next scenario proved Howard right. The rules had been modified. Participants could only shoot at designated targets, nothing else in the environment. When the human team entered the arena again, the alien observers watched closely, expecting failure now that the humans couldn't use their trick of shooting the environment. The scenario involved moving through a simulated urban environment filled with enemy positions. The Vrax team had completed it by systematically eliminating each threat with direct fire, taking cover when needed. Kelly's team took a different approach. Corporeal Ford took point, deliberately exposing herself briefly, then ducking into cover. The action drew fire from hidden enemy positions, revealing their locations. Private Garcia, observing the pattern of incoming fire, could predict where the next attack would come from. Instead of shooting at the targets directly, the humans started shooting near them, close enough to trigger the simulation sensors that registered suppressive fire. The simulated enemies responded as programmed, keeping their heads down. Using this technique, the human team moved quickly through the zone, suppressing enemies rather than eliminating them, reaching the objective point faster than any previous team. In the council box, a Krasith observer leaned forward, 4 eyes narrowed in concentration. "They're not trying to hit targets precisely," he said slowly. "They're using psychological tactics instead." The Vrax commander growled. "Trickery, not real combat." "Is it not?" replied a third counselor, this one from a species known for their strategic thinking. "They are achieving the objective with minimal resources. Isn't that the definition of effective combat?" The final standard scenario involved protecting a central position from waves of attackers. The Krasith team had excelled here, their precision fire eliminating threats efficiently. When Kelly's team took their position, they did something unexpected. Rather than spreading out to cover all approaches, they clustered together, leaving some approaches seemingly undefended. "Now they make a basic tactical error," the Vrax commander said dismissively. But as the scenario began, the reason for their formation became clear. They weren't planning to shoot all the threats. They were changing the battlefield itself. Working together with precise coordination, Kelly's team fired at key structural points around their position. Support beams weakened, walls partially collapsed, and debris created natural barriers. In less than 2 minutes, they had transformed the open area into a fortified position with limited access points. When the simulated attackers began their assault, they were forced into narrow channels where the humans could easily predict their movement. Rather than trying to eliminate each threat individually, The team focused on controlling the flow of the battle. Sergeant Cole demonstrated his special talent again, ricocheting bullets off surfaces to hit attackers coming from multiple directions with a single shot. Private Garcia anticipated movement patterns so accurately that he could shoot where enemies would be before they arrived. From the viewing gallery, the Krasith commander watched with growing interest. "They don't rely on technology for targeting," he said quietly. "They use understanding of physics and psychology instead." The human team completed the scenario with minimal ammunition expended and no defensive position breached. The score display showed they had outperformed even the Krasith team, despite taking fewer direct shots at enemies. In the diplomatic box, Captain Howard couldn't hide his smile any longer. Now they're beginning to see. The head counselor called for the final challenge, a scenario not shown to any team beforehand. "This will test adaptability in unknown conditions," they announced. The arena transformed into a chaotic environment: unstable terrain, shifting gravity fields, electromagnetic interference, and extreme temperature variations. It was designed to disable most advanced targeting systems and force competitors to rely on basic skills. The Krasith team went first. Their neural targeting systems failed almost immediately in the electromagnetic fields. Without their technology, their shooting became erratic. They struggled through the scenario, eventually completing it, but with poor results. The Vraks fared slightly better, their natural strength helping them stabilize in changing gravity. But their shots went wide in the unstable conditions, and they barely finished the challenge. When Kelly's team entered, the alien observers leaned forward, curious to see how the humans would handle these extreme conditions. Kelly surveyed the chaotic environment and smiled. "This is what we trained for," she told her team. "Remember, adapt and overcome." Their basic weapons, with few electronic components, continued functioning where alien technology failed. In the shifting gravity, the humans used controlled bursts of fire to propel themselves in specific directions. Corporal Ford demonstrated a new technique. In low-gravity areas, she fired at the ground to propel herself upward, gaining a better firing position. In high-gravity zones, the team worked in pairs, one member bracing the other for stability. Most impressive was their use of the electromagnetic interference. Rather than fighting against it, they fired at power nodes to increase the interference in specific areas, creating dead zones where enemy systems couldn't function at all. The alien observers watched in stunned silence as the humans moved through the environment like they were born to it. "Their weapons are primitive," said the Vraks commander, "but that makes them effective here. No complex systems to fail." The Krasith commander nodded slowly. "They don't depend on perfect conditions. They adapt to whatever exists." As the team neared completion of the scenario, one final challenge appeared: a simulated unstable reactor that needed to be shut down. The control panel was behind a barrier that couldn't be penetrated by direct fire. Major Kelly took aim, but not at the barrier or the control panel. Instead, she fired at a coolant pipe running along the ceiling. The leaking coolant created a reflective pool on the floor. She fired again, this time at the pool, and the bullet ricocheted at precisely the right angle to hit the emergency shutdown button on the control panel. The scenario ended. The human team had completed it in record time. In the observation gallery, a Krasith scientist finally understood. "They're not missing," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "They never were aiming for what we thought they should aim for." The head counselor looked at the human team with new respect. "Perhaps," they said slowly, "we have been measuring the wrong skills all along." After the final challenge, the Galactic Council called an emergency session. The human team waited in a holding area, unsure of their standing but pleased with their performance. "Did you see their faces?" Sergeant Cole grinned. They couldn't believe what they were watching. Corporal Ford nodded. "I thought that Vraks commander was going to crack his faceplates when you bounced that shot off 3 surfaces." Major Kelly smiled but remained cautious. "We showed them something new, but that doesn't mean they'll accept it. The council likes things done their way." Captain Howard entered the room, accompanied by Ambassador Ortiz. Both wore careful expressions that gave nothing away. "The Council has reached a decision," Howard said. "They want to see all of you." The team followed them to the main council chamber. All 7 competing species were present, along with dozens of observers. The vast, circular room fell silent as the humans entered. The head counselor stood at the center of the raised platform. Their silvery skin reflected the soft light of the chamber. "We have reviewed the competition results," they began. "By traditional metrics of accuracy and precision, the Krasith team performed most effectively." The Krasith commander nodded, his 4 eyes blinking with satisfaction. However, the head counselor continued, "This competition was ultimately about demonstrating effective combat capabilities. By the metric of objective completion, the human team was superior." A murmur ran through the chamber. Ambassador Ortiz maintained her diplomatic composure, but her eyes shone with pride. "The human approach was unexpected," the head counselor said. "We have much to discuss regarding its implications. The Council calls upon Ambassador Ortiz to explain this strategy in more detail." Lisa stepped forward. "Humans evolved as persistence hunters and environmental manipulators," she explained. "Our ancestors didn't have the strongest claws or the sharpest teeth. What they had was the ability to understand cause and effect, to use the environment itself as a tool." She gestured to Kelly's team. "What you witnessed was not poor marksmanship. It was deliberate indirect action. We don't always aim for what seems obvious because sometimes the direct approach isn't the most effective." The Krasith commander stepped forward. "But how can such an approach be standardized? How can it be taught?" Kelly answered this time. "It can't be fully standardized. That's its strength. Each situation is unique. We train our soldiers to see possibilities, not just targets." "A dangerous approach," growled the Vrax commander. "Unpredictable, chaotic, yet effective," countered a counselor from a species known for their analytical minds. "And perhaps necessary in certain circumstances." The head counselor raised a hand for silence. "The Council has voted to upgrade Earth's status from provisional to full membership, with all the rights and protections that entails." A cheer went up from the human delegation. The Vrax delegation rumbled with disapproval. "Additionally," the head counselor continued, "we wish to establish a joint training program. Selected species will learn human combat techniques, while humans will gain access to our targeting technology." Captain Howard leaned close to Kelly. "They're afraid of us now," he whispered. "That's why they want to keep us close." Kelly nodded slightly. "Better than being dismissed." The Krasith commander approached after the formal session ended. He studied the human team with all 4 eyes. "Your soldiers changed the environment rather than adapting to it," he said. "This is not how the Krasith fight." "Different evolutionary paths lead to different solutions," Kelly replied. The commander was silent for a moment. "There is wisdom in this approach that we had not considered. I would be interested in learning more." As the humans prepared to return to their ship, Lisa found Kelly staring out a viewport at the stars. "Thinking about home?" Lisa asked. Kelly shook her head, thinking about what comes next. "The Vrax won't take this well. They'd been eyeing our territory for months. This might push them to make a move. If they do," Lisa said, "they'll be in for a surprise. The Council is seeing us differently now. We're not just the new species with outdated weapons anymore." Kelly nodded. "We're the species that doesn't aim for the obvious target." "And that," Lisa said with a smile, "might be our greatest strength." 6 months passed since the competition at Nexus Station. Earth enjoyed its new status in the Galactic Council, with expanded territory rights and the freedom to deploy defensive systems throughout their solar system. The joint training program had begun, with officers from several species learning human combat techniques. Major Kelly Dawson had been promoted to colonel and now oversaw the training of alien military personnel at a new facility in the Rocky Mountains. She watched as a group of Krasith officers practiced ricocheting shots off multiple surfaces to hit targets they couldn't see directly. "They're getting better," said Sergeant Cole, who had become one of the primary instructors. Kelly nodded, still too focused on precision, though. They need to understand it's about achieving the objective, not making the perfect shot. An alarm blared through the facility, interrupting the training session. Captain Howard, now Admiral Howard, appeared on the main screen. Colonel Dawson, we have an emergency. The Vraks have launched attacks against 3 Council worlds in the Orion sector. The Council is calling for Earth's assistance. Within 24 hours, Kelly found herself aboard a Council battleship heading toward the conflict zone. Representatives from 5 species were gathered in the command center, including a Krozith tactical officer who had trained with her team. The Vraks have deployed new targeting systems, the Council commander explained. Their accuracy has improved by 50%. Our standard defenses are failing. Kelly studied the tactical display. Have any of you implemented the techniques we taught you? The Krozith officer, named Zelfar, stepped forward. My unit tried, but we lack experience. The Vraks' targeting systems are too advanced. Kelly smiled slightly. Advanced targeting is exactly their weakness. They're still thinking like the Krozith used to, aiming directly at objectives. She pointed to the display. Look at their pattern. Their weapons are calibrated for specific targets, ships, defense platforms, communication arrays. They're not prepared for environmental manipulation. When they reached the battle zone, Kelly took command of a mixed species task force. She split them into smaller units, each led by someone who had trained in human tactics. Remember, she told them, don't fight where they expect you to fight. Don't target what they expect you to target. The Vraks fleet had surrounded a Council outpost on a small moon. Their ships formed a perfect blockade, weapons trained on specific defensive positions. Kelly's plan was simple but effective. Rather than attacking the Vrak ships directly, her forces targeted nearby asteroid fields, propulsion systems of abandoned vessels, and orbital debris. The resulting chaos disrupted the Vrak's targeting systems, which were calibrated for specific threats, not environmental hazards. On the moon's surface, human advisors helped the defenders use the environment to their advantage. Rather than shooting at Vrak's troops, they targeted water reservoirs, power stations, and terrain features, creating obstacles and confusion. The Vraks, faced with an enemy that wouldn't engage directly, found their advanced targeting systems nearly useless. Their perfect formation broke apart as they tried to deal with multiple environmental threats simultaneously. 3 days later, the Vraks retreated from the moon. Similar reports came in from the other battlefronts. The new human tactics had disrupted Vrak's operations everywhere. In the Galactic Council chamber, a special session was called to recognize Earth's contribution. The head counselor personally thanked Kelly and her team. Your approach to combat has proven its worth, they said. The council acknowledges that sometimes the direct path is not the wisest one. After the ceremony, a young Krozith officer approached Kelly with a modified rifle. We have redesigned our weapons, he explained, showing her the changes. This model is optimized for environmental interaction rather than direct targeting. Kelly accepted the weapon with a smile. The ultimate compliment. Imitation. Admiral Howard joined her as the aliens dispersed. You know what they're calling your tactics now. Human thinking. It's becoming a phrase across council space. To think like a human means to approach problems indirectly. Ironic, Kelly said. 6 months ago, they mocked us for missing targets. They didn't understand what we were aiming for, Howard replied. Now they do. As Kelly prepared to return to Earth, she received a message from Ambassador Ortiz. The first class of the new Galactic Military Academy would begin in 1 month, with Kelly named as head instructor. Students from 12 species had enrolled to learn human thinking. The message ended with a phrase that made Kelly smile. In the grand game of galactic politics, remember, sometimes you win by not aiming at the obvious objective.